Hello. Today I'm going to be talking to my good friend Tom Clarke-Hill. Now, you may know him as a voice actor extraordinaire, probably one of the top UK voices around at the moment, and has been for some time, I have to say. But what you probably didn't know is that he's also a very fine musician. Now, I met Tom when I went down to see my other musical friend, Ian Palmer, down in London. And Tom was playing the bass along with some other pretty amazing musicians. And we had a fabulous night. And that's when I actually asked if he wanted to do we didn't really know it was the Spanner and Spoon show at that time. But yes, Tom is also the co-creator of the Spanner and Spoon show. So we're going to be talking about his other great love, which is music. He's a fabulous bass player. He's played on one of my tracks as well. If you want to have a listen to one of my albums, he's played on that. So here we go. So hello, Tom. How are you?
I'm fine, Gavin. How are you?
Well, I'm
Happy
fine
New
too.
Year, man, and I really mean that.
You do? Yeah, Happy New Year to you too. Do you do, because obviously I know you've got that American twang.
Really?
Just slightly.
All right.
Ever so slightly.
Yeah.
And so I'm assuming you get two celebrations over Christmas.
What's the other one? Well, that's in November.
Is it? Oh,
Yeah,
right. So
the
you
last
don't class-
Thursday in November is Thanksgiving. That's got nothing to do with Christmas.
No.
It's just like eating turkey,
Yeah.
and a whole bunch of other stuff, and then beaching yourself on the couch and watching. I think it was college football games. It was either. It's been so long, man. I've been here 31 years, but it used to be one of the Sundays or one of the days after Thanksgiving or Christmas. It's college games, one of the holidays, and it's pro games, the other one. So I think it was Thanksgiving. They would have like the Rose Bowl and all the different bowl games, college bowl games. So you eat as much turkey as you can stand, and when the tryptophan kicks in, man, you go and just lay on the couch and go, hey, man. And then somebody comes and shoves some pumpkin pie in your face.
I've never tasted
and then
pumpkin pie.
You're thankful for all the things in your life, and you apologize to the Native Americans whose country is stolen. They showed you how to grow corn, and then you drove them across the country. So, I've got, my great grandmother was supposed to be Cherokee Indian. I don't know yet. I haven't had my DNA checked, but
You've not worked that out.
So, part of me feels as though I've been abused.
I know what you mean. Why is it you have turkey as well? What makes it so weird?
What's that all about, man?
What's it about?
Because there was wild turkeys running around in New England. And they thought, man, let's shoot one of these things. Let's cook it.
And they only did that on Thanksgiving?
No, I'm sure they did it all the time.
All the time. I can't work out why Christmas is turks, slaughter a turkey at Christmas. I don't know why we do that either.
Yeah, because Ebenezer Scrooge, it was all about a goose, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
We had a goose on Boxing Day this year.
A goose? What's the difference between a goose
Somebody
and a turkey?
snuck up behind me. No, we cooked a goose, and it was rather fatty, which I like. I like dark meat. I like fat. And then my wife and I quit sugar on the day after New Year's and went into a depression for 3 days. Man.
I know, it's terrible.
It's like day 2 off sugar, because we hit it hard, man, for about 6 weeks, And eat chocolates and biscuits and mince pies and all that other stuff. And about day 2, I said, what are you looking at, man? What are you looking at? What are you looking at? And Izzy, she's sweet. She's sweet, man. Yeah. She doesn't act like that. But
no.
January 2nd, she sure did, man. It's scary, man.
I was going to say. Well, have you seen the Glucose Goddess?
No. Is she coming around?
No, not yet, but she might.
Yeah.
No, she's French. Don't hold that against her.
I am the Glucose Goddess.
Yes, she is a Glucose Goddess.
Yes.
We're going to get into some very strange accents.
Is her name
today.
Glenda?
Glenda Goddess.
Glenda, the Glucose Goddess. Glendon.
That would be good, wouldn't it? No, because I've been doing the same. No, well, and when I say no sugar, yeah, no. I did the same over Christmas.
Yeah, man.
Stupidly bolted.
So someone offered me a
chocolate
mince pie yesterday, and I went, no. My daughter stuck them under my nose a couple days ago, and I went, gone, which is cool. You want to see my new water bottle? Look at this.
Yes, please.
I'm going to hydrate. It's
No, that's
like
cool.
If I drink, and it makes you wet the bed.
Me too, look. I got one too. And it makes
Did you see a
tune.
drip? Mine's like mine doesn't have a, oh yeah, ouch.
I shouldn't have done that, should I? I think it's cool because it's got all these. That sounds.
You could
like
probably put coffee in yours.
Well, no, yeah, you can. You're
metal.
supposed to be able to. Yeah, you're supposed to be able to put all sorts of things in it.
I know, because thermos
It's a cat in it though.
thermoses keep things hot,
Yeah,
or they keep them cold. But
cold.
how does it know?
I think there's like a little button, and you press the button for hot and press the button for cold.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's got to be something.
Right. So anyway, thanks for that lovely intro you gave me.
Oh, that's okay.
What did you want to
anytime.
know, man?
Well, I was thinking, this is my music channel. It's not the Spanner and Spoon channel, and we should talk about music.
It's
Is
a
that
mean
okay?
music channel. Is that what you said?
Music?
Mean.
Music? It's my music channel.
Oh, me music channel. Okay.
My music
Me.
channel.
It's all about me. Music
No,
channel.
yeah, me. It's not
Okay.
really about me, no.
It's your music channel.
Oh, yes, so it is.
So you could say my music channel.
That's what I said. My
No,
music
you
channel.
went. It's me music channel.
Oh, that's
Mary Poppins.
Mary Poppins. That's me
I
brummy.
love
That's
you,
the
Dick
brummy.
Van Dyke. Oh, I love you, Mary Poppins.
That's the
Okay, so yeah, you're a great
Yeah.
musician. I've heard you singing
you?
singing
Really?
those Taylor
Dulcet-
Swift songs, and man,
Yeah,
You're-
that's a vicious song. That is. I think she'd get locked up for that if she was anyone else.
yeah.
Don't you think so? I think so. Okay.
No,
quick
free
question.
speech, man. Free speech.
Yeah. Question. Right. What got you into play? If everyone's going to know, because my brilliant intro said that you're a brilliant bass player and all that sort of stuff. But what got you into it? What got you into playing the bass?
I was born into a musical family. My mother was a pianist. My dad played trombone, but he wasn't. I didn't really know he was a musician as a kid because he'd given it up by the time I was aware of what was happening. But before he got married, he was a trombone player, and he played in some bands in the Bay Area. And I actually heard him on a 45 when I was about 45, playing. Getting sentimental over you with
I
this big
recognise
band.
that then.
But he nailed it, man. He was really in tune. It was a beautiful song, a beautiful sound he got out of his instrument. And so my mother's a piano player, and then my grandmother, her mother, was a pianist who was a concert pianist for a while, and then she did different types of gigs. When she met my grandfather, who was a bassist, and you've seen my big double bass that belonged to my grandfather. So I was brought up, forced to have piano lessons as a kid. It's the last thing I wanted to do. But from the time I was 4 until I think about 11 or 12, I was obnoxious enough. They let me quit. And due to my grandmother's diligence, I learned how to read treble clef and bass clef. And I there was a couple tunes that grabbed me. I remember playing Moon River at a talent contest on the piano when I was. I must have been before. I must have been about 10, and then I liked a song called "Cast Your Fate to the Wind." And then I cast my fate to the wind. It's a piano player named Vince Guaraldi from the Bay Area that recorded that. And then the other one was Exodus. Bum bum blum 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 blum. And I just recently bought that sheet music that I could just blaze through when I was like 12, and I can't play it yet. So
It really gets me, the guys that can just sort of pick up a piece of sheet music and just like, play it straight off. It doesn't worry me because, well, I can't do it, but.
Well, if you worked at it, you could. So it's one of those things, especially, if you start out as a, what was your first instrument? Was it guitar?
Clarinet.
Clarinet. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you learned melody. Mm-hmm. Then what was your second instrument?
Well, clarinet, I got to grade 8 on that.
Well, that's good, man.
And then I went over to guitar.
Right.
Classical guitar.
Right.
Acoustic guitar, bass guitar, lead guitar.
Right. How old were you when you switched to guitar?
11.
Right. So you were up to grade 8 on clarinet by the time you were 11?
I think, yeah.
That's pretty cool. So you could, your sight reading at that point was probably pretty good. Or anyway.
You see, the thing
being able to identify melodies was pretty good.
This is it. And so the thing is about the way I did it, I played by ear. And it's very difficult. Yeah. So does that make more sense now?
Well, I've got a friend that used to do the same thing. He would get a piano assignment and they would go home and he would listen to it on record and he would learn it. And then he'd be looking at the music, playing it from memory, he'd learn it by ear, and the teacher would go, "Oh, that's amazing! How did you know?" A lot of practice, man. But if she'd have said, "What's that note?" You'd say, "I don't know. What are the lines in space?"
Exactly, that's what I'd say.
Yeah.
And so I used to go into my clarinet lesson, and I'd wander in there, and he'd say, "Right, today, Gavin, we're going to be playing Mozart's blah blah, whatever it is. Oh, well, can you play it for me first, please?" So I know, I just want to know how you, do it, and things like. I think he caught on after the 20th time I said to do that, but but I think that's what I did, and getting to grade 8 was a little tougher, and then I did music as well.
Right.
So I actually did music at school, and there was this, do you know about composition, all that stuff, when they say you can get 2 notes. It's a bit like maths, isn't it? You get 2 notes, and then you can work out what the middle note is, or you can work out what the higher note is, and whatever.
Right.
But I said, well, I don't want to do that. I must have been ADHD. I mean, I really must have been. I just sat there looking out the window.
Well, I think the thing though too with people that have a natural ear, and they can perform something really quick, and then they realize that they've just done that instinctually or just natural talent wise, but to go through the nuts and bolts of learning how to read music, okay, that's a C, it's a C sharp, it's here on the instrument, blah, 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 and slow down enough to do it. And I found the same thing with sight reading, is that rhythmically, I would know where notes were, but the rhythms would not shock me, they would stop me until I started learning how to kind of like see, okay, I got some eighth notes coming up, I'm going to think 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Oh, here's some 16th notes, 1E and a 2E and a 3E, and here's some triplet. And I practiced having those grids come into my head 3 or 4 notes ahead of wherever the next kind of little thing was. And so when I was in my 30s and 40s, before moving here, I did a lot of gigs where I had to sight read bass charts. And so there was that muscle was happening then. And then when I got over here, most of the stuff I did was small bands for a long time. And just within the last 3 or 4 years, or maybe a little bit more than that, I've joined 2 big bands. And it was atrocious, the mistakes I was having with just what you guys call crotchets and quavers, mate. But I mean, eighth notes and quarter notes, man, were like, just syncopation of those was messing with me. Yeah. And it's because I got to the point of where, I know what it sounds like. I don't have to break it down that way. So it's teaching my brain to slow down, break it down, and then see what happens. Does that make any sense?
No, it does. That makes a lot of sense. And of course, then I went to, when I was 16, I started playing the drums, you see. And I couldn't not learn, because it's a guy called Mal Garrett. You bet you know Mal Garrett.
Love Malcolm.
He's such a lovely guy, isn't he?
And what a legacy he's got in the Midlands, man.
Oh,
of all the players,
Oh yeah, there's no one he hasn't played with in the Midlands.
Yeah,
or hasn't played with him.
But he started seeing really good jazz artists at a very young age.
Yeah.
He tells you about, like, in Wolverhampton. I wish I could remember what bands he was talking about, but it was like either Count Basie or Duke Ellington, or like these major American artists would come through and actually do gigs in Wolverhampton.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he got the bug real early, and I remember coming over here when one of the first gigs I did with him, I called Cherokee as fast as I could play it, and he kicked it up about 2 notches from there and just went, "Come on, man!"
Just to annoy you.
So I was doing the old. If you listen to Sonny Rollins, there's a couple of tunes called "Be Quick" and "Be Swift," and it's one of them's "Lover," which goes da 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 ding 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 da 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 da. But they're playing like da 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 ding 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 ding. It's Max Roach, and then the other one's called "Be Swift," and it's Cherokee. And again, it's like bump, 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 ding, 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 and you can hear this bass player named Bob Cranshaw going into 2. A lot of the time he's going doom doom. I go, oh, listen to the melodic way he's breaking it up, and I'm saying, no, man, he's dying.
That's good. Very soon.
And speaking of that, if there's any bass players watching this, I took some lessons off a guy named Buell Neidlinger, who was the principal bass player for the Dallas Symphony. He was in the Boston Symphony when my cousin Tiny was there. So we'll get to him as far as my music influences. But he also played with Frank Zappa. He played with Cecil Taylor. And he used to trade gigs with Charlie Hayden in New York. And he knew Paul Chambers. He met Paul Chambers once, who was the bass player with Miles
Davis.
And many, 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 many other people. And he said that Paul Chambers thought circular. You go ding 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 ding. It's almost like he's going. There's a circle for every bar. Or and by doing that, you're throwing your hand up there, but you're still half time to what you see someone go 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4. It's the same thing when I get with somebody that has to tap their foot on every beat, And there was another great bass player named Putter Smith, who I took a reading class from when I was in L.A. Yeah, Putter Smith, and he had and his brother Carson Smith was a bass player as well, who I used to see in Las Vegas. But he was like you put your foot on the ground instead of going tap, 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 tap. You go 1 2 3 4 1 2 3. Or if it's really fast, 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3. So that gets you in halftime, and you know that when your foot comes down, you're at the next bar or the next half of the bar or whatever. Yeah. And in 3, he would go 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. And so if it was a slow 5, he'd be going 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 or 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1. Anyway, it was a way of breaking it down so in your head you're thinking halftime, but you're also looking at the music, and you know that when you're feeling that pulse, which I think that's what Paul Chambers was doing when he's talking about playing circular. Mm-hmm. And when I remember to do that, it's cool. But I don't play that many gigs where people play crazy, crazy tempos, except every once in a while I'll get one with Simon Spillett. Have you heard him?
I think what I was going to say was the what was the name now? Brian Newton, big band. Have you heard of them?
Yes.
Well, there was a guy in there. I don't know if he's still there, but I've never heard such fast plays. I think he's a tenor sax or something like that. But he just crams like twice as much into one bar that anybody else will do. Right. And I don't know how the hell he does it, so I'm assuming that's similar to
practice. Well, Simon Spillett is really into Tubby Hayes, who was one of the English great tenor players and sax players that went over to the States, and he was on the level of any of those guys. Mm-hmm. And so it's when guys have situations where they can play those tempos on a regular basis and make themselves practice them off and on. It's one of those things. So sometimes I hit it, sometimes I don't. Yeah.
I think I think that's the one thing. I mean, I'm not a great massive jazzer. I like singing. I like singing a bit of jazz. As I said, I sang with the 4X Big Band, and I was I think we was at Litchfield Garrick, the Litchfield Garrick.
Yep.
Singing there, and they ripped that one. They really did a really good job of that one. They really did amazing thing of that. So I sang with them, and I sang with a few others, But, I like singing jazz. I'd like to do some original jazz, though. It doesn't seem to happen very often. Does it? Jazz singing original? Or am I wrong?
You got to make it happen, man.
Okay. Do you want to play bass?
Sure.
Okay. We'll do that then.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
It's a crazy world now. I listened to this bass player named Todd Kuhlman, who did a podcast during at least the first 2 or 3 years after COVID, and just talking about the way the music business is now. Back in the 70s and 80s, it wasn't like when's your next gig? It was who are you with? And he would say, "Oh, I'm with James Moody." And one time he bumped into Miles Davis in New York, and Miles goes, "Who are you with?" He goes, I'm with James Moody, Mr. Davis. Oh, all right. And so like when I was in L.A., I was with Les Brown and the band Renown. That was my steady gig.
Yeah.
And then I would do other stuff too. But I was actually with somebody. And when you say you're with somebody, that meant that you've got like an itinerary with a bunch of gigs on it. And now it's like, you and I put together a band. We're going to probably get, 6 gigs in 6 months. We're not going to go into, like the jazz clubs. When I came up in Boston, I started playing in Boston. I guess I'll do a fast track from when I played piano as a kid. I probably tried some guitar lessons when I was about 13. I didn't like my hand all cramped up like that. I forgot about that. I started playing harmonica.
That was what made you want bass rather than guitar?
I just fell into it, man. I fell into it. I'll get there. So I started playing harmonica along with records, and I got to where I could sit in and play the blues. And then when I got out of school, I was way off the rails. I was working in a lumber mill for a while, and I was doing this and doing that. And I moved to L.A., and my cousin Tiny, who was in the Boston Symphony, called me up. And he said, "What are you doing?" He'd had a few drinks. Like, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm delivering furniture." And he goes, "Come back here and study the bass." And so the next day I said, "Hey, I'm going to do that." And he goes, "What?" I said, "I'm going to come back there and study the bass, man." He goes, "Oh, okay." And my skinny, I don't know if you've seen my skinny double bass. I might have had it down in London the day I met you. I think that was probably, yeah. So that was his bass, which I inherited after he passed away. And when I say cousin, he's the same age. He was older than my mother. He was like a second cousin.
Right.
And he was my grandma's brother's son. That's what he was. And yeah. So I moved back east and studied with Tiny for a while, and then went to Berklee College of Music, which is a jazz school. And I just took a 7-week course because I didn't know if I could cut it. And I'd only been playing the bass about 4 months. But the reason I took up the bass was, it's like I've done all these other things as a teenager, and it was like, I got to do something with my life. The only thing that really moves me is music.
Yeah.
And my cousin had come through town when I was like 16, 17, and I was into B.B. King, and I was into the blues. Like when I was younger, I was into the Beach Boys, Jan and Dean, all of that. And when I was 11 or 12, somebody burgled our house, took my surf records, and I got 60 quid, and I went down, or $60, and I went down and I bought Led Zeppelin 2, Electric Ladyland, Allman Brothers double album, Big Brother and the Holding Company's greatest hits, Janis Joplin. So I'd gone like psychedelic kind of rock, but Hendrix kind of, and Eric Clapton and Jimmy Page, that's got the blues into me. Mm-hmm. And then I got a B.B. King album called Live at the Regal, which is probably the best live album ever for blues, man. The crowd is just so with him, man.
B.B. King is
man, but that was when in his heyday, man. I gave you 7 children, and now you want to give them back, and the place goes, and when I was in high school, some buddies of mine and I drove to San Francisco, and we saw a concert with a band called Copperhead, which we'd never heard of, and then a band called Malo. And Malo was George Santana, Carlos Santana's brother.
Right.
So all of the Latino contingent of the Bay Area was there going, Malo, Malo, Malo. And then after that, Freddie King came out. Freddie King just playing crazy, crazy blues, more technique than BB. But then BB came out and just said, "You know the truth, but you're afraid to say it. Ain't what I play, it's the way that I play. I got the power of the blues. you know, like,
Wow.
and then him and Freddie had and man, tears coming down my eyes. So I was struck down by the blues then. And so my cousin came through town, and he and my uncle had like a little jam session, and they just played a blues, and it's on my grandfather's bass, and he just took a solo, and it just went right into me, man, and I just flashed back on it, man, and he said you could do this if you wanted to, man.
Oh wow.
And so when he called me up that night, I was ready to do it. Wow, I forgot about that, man. How strong it hit me then.
No, sorry.
Woo! No,
That's
don't.
cool.
That's what it's all
nice.
about. You know,
Yeah.
my son Quentin. We've been talking about, you know, what we've been through, what I've been through, and all this other stuff. And when I get moments like that make me emotional, I think that's what life's all about. You know, and I have to remember that sometimes, is that I think we're spiritual beings having a physical experience.
Yeah.
And a lot of times in life, you got a physical, you got a mental, and you got a spiritual side. It's a triangle, three-legged thing. And so if your physical thing, you're thinking about how you look, you know, or stuffing food in your face, you know, to make yourself feel better, and your brain's telling you you're crazy or stuff like that, and you don't have some sort of a spiritual connection, which I've gotten from music and a whole lot of other stuff, then my life's incomplete. So that was a spiritual moment for me at the age of 16, which later on, when I'm like 18, 19, I took him up on. I went back there, studied music, and I took the 7-week course. There was a sax player named Gary Ruggiero, Italiano.
Yeah.
And he just got off the road with the Fifth Dimension. Would you like to ride in my beautiful, must be the dawning of the age of Aquarius. And the first 2 tunes that he pulled up in this melody and improvisation tune, or melody and improvisation course, I'd heard before on my first jazz album that I bought, because I figured I better learn how to play this stuff. I bought Night Train, Oscar Peterson Trio, and Ed Thigpen, Ray Brown, and the Night Train. You know, the bass solo on Night Train. You know, da da, ba da 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 da, right? And the bass line, he goes, do 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 do. Boom, boom, boo, boo, boom, boom. Call and response. Boo, 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 boo. Boom, boom, boo, doo, 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 doo. Skonk, skonk, doo, 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 boom, boom. So I'd more or less learned a hacked up version of that just by ear.
Yeah.
So that's one of the first tunes. He knows I've only been playing 4 months, and he goes, he goes, you got some natural talent there, man. And then the next one was C Jam Blues or something like that, and I had enough of that. So my thing from the minute I played bass was wrong but strong. So it was I was always like, I love laying down notes for other people to play on. And I've gone to gigs like in early days, and even now I follow bass players that just have chops all over the place. But sometimes the drummers like me better just because I'm into finding the next right note down on the bottom and not being flashy and all that other stuff. But that has a means to an end. And if there are any bass players watching, I was lackadaisical about learning melody, and I shouldn't have done that. You know, it's like I remember being in this melody and improvisation class later on, because I went to Berklee another 2 years. And there's these things, you know what guide tone lines are?
No, I don't.
So if you put a 12-bar blues up,
Yeah.
C7, F7, G7, C7, right? And the guide tones are the 3rd and the 7th. So a C7, it's E and B flat. And F, it's A and E flat. And G, it's B and F. And you connect these guide tones. So but a bass player is always like playing the roots and the fifths and walking through that stuff.
Yeah.
And so there's like 3 guitar players, and 5 trumpet players, and 2 trombone players, and 6 saxophone players, and they're all playing these guide tone lines like just as oh God, you know. And I'm digging away while they're playing these things, and then he gets over to me, the trombone player, and he goes, you don't need to know this, you're just a bass player. And I'm so like, okay, I don't need to know this. So stupid, you know. Part of it is a cop out, you know. It's obvious. Yeah. You know, and you hear, like Ray Brown would say that, you know, you've got 3 things. You've got your bass notes, you've got your harmony, you've got the chord bits, and then you've got your melody, and they're all equally as important. You know, so it's about putting in the time, you know.
Yeah, I think I do that with vocal harmony. You see, so if I ever sing anything along to something, you know, if I'm listening to a record or something, I'll very rarely sing the straight tune. I'll generally do a third or a fifth, you know, and things like that. And is that very similar to?
Well, that's good. That means your ears hear the chord tones.
I hear bass most of the time because I'm a drummer. I've been a drummer, or I've latched into bass most of my life. I started off loving Brian Bennett from the Shadows, you see.
Right.
And then I started playing drums, and then I started just listening to bass, literally. I mean, most records, like, you know, Mark King, I know he's a different type of bass player, but that sort of stuff lit me up, and some of the stuff from Michael Jackson. Man. Some of the stuff that Quincy Jones, Michael Jackson used to sort of do is brilliant as well.
Well, the bass player on his records, like, what's the one?
It's not Jacko, is it, or something like that?
No, it's Louis Johnson is on a lot of those, the slappy stuff.
Yeah.
And then who's the other guy that played with Steely Dan as well? Great bass player.
I don't know.
Anyway.
I need to do a top 10 bass players. I've done a top 10 drummers.
Yeah.
So I've got another question for you then.
All right.
So who's the best? I mean, you don't have to like sort of, you know, go bananas over it, but who's the best drummer you've played with? I mean, the most fun drummer to play with, I think, probably is the best to say.
I don't know. That's a tough one. Yeah. That's a tough one because the guy that got me the gig for Les Brown and the band Renown was a drummer named Jack Sperling, and he a studio guy, and he was just so sweet and a lot older than me, and I had like 2 gigs to try for this gig, and the first one we did in town, and I did it on double bass, and the Les Brown band book was almost like 1,000 charts, man.
Whoa.
And he would say, 742, 19, and 26. And you're supposed to have those out.
That's good to say.
Open them up.
Most of the time.
And then he'd go, hut, 2, 3. He would give you 1 bar. One bar, hut, and you're in the next one. And then the cutoff of one tune was almost a downbeat of the next one of those 3 charts. He'd give you 3 charts at a time. And the first gig, I've got like the sax player in front of me is a really nice cat, and he was helping me out and all that. This was almost like a librarian gig, and I was just shitting myself. And I was like, this stuff all over the place. But the second gig, they weren't sure where they were going to use me, and we had a gig in Palm Springs, and part of the way through the thing, I was thinking, you know, to me, this drummer feels like he's not dragging, but he's way in back of the beat. But I realized that's what Les Brown wanted. And you listen to the bassy band, it's like, dun, 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 dun,
so it's almost holding it back.
So it's like everything's like and so I thought, man, I've got to lock in with this cat or I'm not going to get the gig. And also there was some other times there's a great jazz drummer, you know, named Jake Hanna, who's played on with a whole bunch of people, Woody Herman and studio stuff, and he came on the band, and Les would go, hut, 2, 3, 4, and the guy go, bing, ding, 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 and Les would go, like bringing him back like that. Yeah. And Jake would go, make up your fucking mind, you know, something like that. And then Les would look at his brother like, we're not calling him back. No. But Sperling would know, like, we did a chart on Just Friends, which the intro is ba-ba-doo-da, ba-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da-do-ba-da-da-do-ba-do-da, Just Friends, lovers. So it's ba-ba-doo, so 1, 2, and he'd go, hut, 2, 3, 4. He'd almost count it too fast. Because and he was like, you only need 1 bar. You see people going 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. You know, just to make sure everybody really feels where it is. But Les is like, you know where it is. Like he's just 1, 2, 3, and Jack would just pull it back. And also his ride was almost circular. We're talking about the Paul Chambers thing. Tang, 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 tang. You know, And so I locked into that, and about halfway through the second set, he's going, like looking at me with a big smile on his face.
Yeah.
And then the band, there's another emotional moment.
So he's loving it, isn't he?
So the band leader picked up on that, and then they came up to me after that set and said, will you join the band? So it's
Wow.
so he's my favorite
Cool.
drummer ever because he got me the best gig ever.
Yeah.
But he was great, man. He was a really good studio guy. But there's the drummer that plays with the Gordon Goodwin big band, a guy named Ray Brinker. Check him out, man. Because
Ray Brinker. Right,
Ray
okay.
Brinker, man. He does a lot of studio stuff, but he was the big band. I played in the big band for the L.A. Raiders game when the Raiders were in L.A.
Oh,
We used to play the home games at the Coliseum. And he had
that was good.
he had like a Steve Gadd set up, the Yamaha.
Right.
And man, that dude, any style, all over it. So he would be up there.
Have you ever played with Steve Gadd?
No.
No. I've
No,
watched
but
him, the
what
world's greatest drummer thing, he
Yeah.
does the world.
Yeah.
Went there and had a really good chat to him afterwards as well. He was
What a
such
great guy, man.
lovely guy.
Yeah.
Really nice.
I saw a really good thing the other day about how to run a sound check,
Yeah.
And he was telling the guys, he was saying, he goes, you got to turn the mains. They go, sounds really good out here, Steve. He goes, well, it doesn't really matter if it sounds good out there. It doesn't sound good up here. There's too much of this. And he goes, okay, stop everything off. And he goes, just the guitar. It gets that in his monitor. Okay, just the organ and give me the sax and blah blah blah. He got everything right like that. And he goes, but don't overwhelm us with what you put out there, sort of a thing.
We don't care really, to be
Yeah,
honest.
because
You're up there, you're having, I imagine you're the same when you're playing. If it don't sound right up there, you're not going to enjoy it.
no, it's not. What's the point?
Exactly.
What's the point, man? I've
And
done some
true?
loud gigs this last year, man. I was going, what am I doing, man?
So is it true, and I think it is true, and I bet you're going to tell me it is true, that the bass player keeps time? Because I think he does, or she.
Well, that's our job,
Yeah.
is to lay down the foundation along with the drummer. But so if you've got a drummer, but sometimes you got to, like, I think if you listen to the Ray Brown, Ed Thigpen thing, a lot of times Ray would be putting in embellishments, whatever like that. But while he's doing that, Ed Thigpen's keeping some lovely straight time, right?
Yeah.
So it's a give and take thing.
Yeah.
And if I get with a drummer that's giving a clinic, and if I start interacting with him, what's happening with the rest of the band, man?
Yeah.
And I love Ron Carter, man. Ron Carter, he's got a documentary that he did when he was 85, and a lot of times he goes, I'm just focusing on hitting the next right note. What are you going to do tomorrow? I'm going to just make sure I play the right notes.
Play a right note.
Yeah.
Cool.
And you think about it, because that gets you right, Eckhart Tolle, you know who Eckhart Tolle is?
No, I don't.
The Power of Now.
No, I think
He's a German kind of like a forward-thinking person. But he says, when you say yes to the moment, you escape the prison of the mind. So now...
I was never much of a listener, you see.
Yeah, I can tell. But
Music listener, I mean.
I know we interrupt each other all the time. We've got so much to say. Not that it's that important, but man, I got a lot of stuff to say. I was talking, like I like to, some people point out my character defects way too much, but sometimes I can tell that, like, I'm the little kid in class.
Yeah.
On show and tell day, some kid's going up there and he's got a pet skunk, or something like that, and you're thinking, oh, my dog ate a pet skunk, like,
That's right,
and you just
that's right.
and this guy's got like a 10-minute presentation, and you're hardly listening to anything that he's saying because you
just
gotta tell somebody. And speaking of Jocko, when I was at Berklee, it was right after Jocko's album had first come out, and they had a little seminar we could go meet Jocko, right? And I go down and they've got these amplifiers at Berklee School of Music. They were Oliver amps, and I think somebody did like an underhanded thing. Hey, I can get you some amplifiers for the school, They were like mediocre little amps, but there's this guy, he's plugging Jocko's bass into this Oliver amp, and he's got He's got like if you remember his first solo album, he looks dark and kind of European. He looks like he's Italian almost, right?
Yeah.
But there's this like surfer looking dude with a baseball shirt on, long blonde hair, like sun bleached. It was brown hair but sun bleached sort of thing. Yeah. And I'm thinking, oh, who's that guy? And then he picks up Jocko's bass, he straps it on, and then playing the record, and he starts playing note for note along with it. And I go, wow, man, that guy's already learned how to play along with Jocko. That's how thick I was, man. Oh, wait, it is him. And so he starts like playing and talking to people what it's like on the road. And this was early days. It was before he got strung out on cocaine and alcohol, you know. Yeah. But I was just like the whole time, because I was mainly a double bass player, and I bought an electric just because I wasn't getting any gigs, you know. But I practiced upright when I practiced. I was into all kinds of crap then too. I was out getting high, but I was in my head, it's like, I've got to ask him, do you play upright bass? Did you ever play upright bass? You know, and then finally, you know, I finally raised my hand and he goes, yeah, you. Like, I go, oh, do you play upright? He goes, yeah, I used to have one, but Florida weather, it exploded one night, so I just pulled the frets out, you know. It was like, but he was like, here's this stupid question again, you know, you know, from the double bass players, you know.
Yeah. So one thing I've thought, I mean, when you get to a specific level with any any musical instrument, it seems that, and I'm sure this is the same, that's why I'm asking you the question, with bass players, I think if you hum a note, you do a note, you can instantly find it on the fretboard.
I don't know about that, man.
Well, I think you've got to be able to do what you do, because when you because that's how I do it with vocals. So if I think I want to sing, well, but I'm connected to my vocal, aren't I? You know, I feel bass players, if they know where to go, you don't know where to go physically with your hands. It's your brain says that's the note I want to play. Like you've just done now when you've been going to I bet you if you did like a tune in your head, you could pick your bass up and do that.
I don't know, man.
I bet you could.
Let's try.
I'm not going to tax you to do it.
I was off.
Yeah, but that was very close.
I think I did in B flat.
But you've got to start with a reference note anyway. You've got to know where you are. You know, like when you got a piano, you start with your middle C, and you play that, and you know where you are, and then you know what the next sound's going to be. So that's from an improvisation perspective, which you've got to do when you do a bass solo in jazz, haven't you?
Yeah.
Then as long as you know your reference point, you can then think, well, I'll go there, and I'll do this, and I'll do the other.
I saw a very interesting thing with Victor Wooten. Do you know who Victor Wooten is?
I do not.
Victor Wooten is electric bass god.
Good name.
You know, if you were going to say the top 10 bass players, as far as electric goes, he's up there. And my nephew, who is an amazing bassist, Josh Fosgreen, who has his own thing called Bass Buzz. If you look on YouTube, he teaches lessons and there's all kinds of stuff. And that was his. He was his protege, I guess.
Right.
You say that, you know, that was his idol was Victor Wooten at some point. And Josh is 6'7" and Victor's about 5'9". So there's a picture of Victor Wooten going like that, and Josh is like, you know.
Because your son's massive as well.
Yeah,
isn't he?
yeah. Him and Josh are about
foot?
the same. He's 6'8".
Wow.
But you got to feed them alfalfa when they're young. You know? And so Victor Wooten's got like 3 or 4 different bass players, and they're sitting around, and he goes, and he goes, okay, jump in, boom, and this kid goes, and then he finds the key, and then he starts grooving.
Yeah.
And he goes, okay, now you. And then he switches to another key, boom, boom, boom. The other guy does almost the same thing. The other guy does almost the same thing. Yeah. And he goes, I'm not saying what you did is wrong. I'm not sure this is exactly how it went. He goes, but you guys start playing. And I think, and I don't know if he shows it or if he says it. He says, you come in on the groove. Yeah. So it's like boom, 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 boom. But I might come in. If I go, you come in on, like the train has left the station, you jump on the train, and you wiggle around until you find the right notes. But the main thing, which I was going to say to you earlier, was when you talked about taking up drums. If I was going to raise a kid to be the best musician ever, the first thing I would have him is on drums.
Really?
I wouldn't have him thinking
Yeah.
about anything else but rhythm.
Yeah.
Because
I can
you know,
see
you
that.
watch. There's a piano player named Barry Harris, and if you put into YouTube Barry Harris a rhythm or something like that, it might come up. This one that I saw, and he says that's everything. He goes. There's a certain rhythm. There's a certain tempo to everything, to the universe.
Oh,
the earth, the earth
definitely.
is spinning. You know, and that's like a. There's a. I want to say Terrence Howard is this actor, real light-skinned African American guy, and you've seen he was in a movie called Crash, and you've seen him in
yeah.
stuff.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
he's a genius, man,
Oh,
and he's got patents on like goes totally against our whole thing about that the metric system and things being in 10 and this and that. He goes everything's circular, and if you look at the imprint of the flower of the universe or something like that, it's little circles. Everything's little circles, you know. And Elton John, the circle of life, you know, goes round and round and round. So if you think that way. What was I talking about? Was I talking about? I was talking about. I got distracted.
And I was thinking about my next question.
Yeah. So I'm talking about him thinking in circles.
Yes, that's
and
right.
And before that, we were talking about how to come in on a tune.
Yeah.
You know, you think that you're leaving the station. Oh,
That's right,
Why
leaving the
a
station.
kid?
That's-
Okay, rhythm. That's what that. Why a
Rhythm,
kid should
yeah.
play drums?
Yeah.
Is that time is everything.
Yeah.
And if and a guy can have chops, you know, you've played with guys that just amazing chops or something like that, but it doesn't feel right, man.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and it's just like you look
Yeah.
at those Buddy Rich concerts where it's Vinnie Colaiuta and Dave Weckl just go, and then they go to Steve Gadd and he goes,
And it's just,
have
yeah.
you seen that?
Yeah, I have.
It's just like he brings the house down, man.
Oh, yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's
Straight.
got to have
Yeah.
and Dave Weckl and Vinny, I'm sure were
They're
totally
cool.
in time.
Yeah.
It was beautiful, but that's Steve Gadd was thinking, you know, how does this feel? You know,
50 Ways to Leave You. Lover is one of
Yeah.
one of my favourite beats of his. I can't. Yeah, it's that's a strange one. Well, when I went to see Ian play at the World's Greatest Drummer, of course, obviously he was there, and there was, I think Brian Bennett was there, but I don't think he played. I don't think he actually got up on the stage, Brian Bennett. But
I don't know
drumming is so.
Who's Brian Bennett?
Brian Bennett's Shadows drummer.
Oh, okay.
That's what started me off
All right.
listening to that. Well, mostly because my dad, but my dad was.
What
a
were the
drummer.
Shadows' greatest hits? Walk, Don't Run, or
No,
Was that
it
the
was
Ventures?
FBI. That was yeah. FBI, Apache.
how did FBI go?
Oh no, you put me on the spot. I don't know. I
All right.
can't remember now. No, I can't remember.
Who did? Who did Wipeout? Was that the Ventures?
I don't know who played it, but I know I won a talent contest playing Wipeout.
Nice.
Yeah, I wasn't even learning the drums then, but I played it on the drums.
Yeah.
Because my dad had given me a bit of teaching. So let's shift along a little bit. What's your best gig? Best gig that you've had?
Well, the best gig was that Les Brown
Was that
band
one that you
that
was
I
on
did
about,
for
yeah.
9 years.
Okay.
You know, because we did all the
Yeah.
celebrity golf tournaments and we recorded at Capitol Records. I did 2 records with him.
Wow.
One called Digital Swing and the other one called Anything Goes.
Cool.
And
Are they available?
got
Can you get those?
those are on Spotify.
Cool.
If you put in Les Brown Digital Swing,
Yeah,
and I think
yeah.
Anything Goes is as well.
Right.
But that was a trip. But the Digital Swing we recorded at Capitol Records, but we recorded it straight to disc. It was right at the beginning of digital,
Yeah.
to DAT, straight to
Right.
DAT.
Yeah. DAT. Yeah. Digital.
And so
audio
there was
tape.
no overdubs, man.
No. Wow.
So like, you know, somebody screwed up. You know, there's like 17 guys looking at you, man.
Yeah. You got to go right back to the
Yeah,
beginning.
and I think I remained unscathed that
Well
whole
done.
day, man. I
Oh,
think
well done.
There might have been one where they
Yeah.
kind of looked a little bit funny at me, and then they blamed some of it on somebody else too, you know. and the guitar player on that was a guy named Mundell Lowe, who is a pretty famous guitar player.
Some amazing names you're coming up with.
Yeah.
I tell you. Some really cool names. What's Capitol what's it like? What's the recording studio?
Well, I
like?
just remember it being like the room we were in was big, kind of like Abbey Road or Air Studios.
Like
you
the
see those
Studio
pictures.
One.
Man, have you seen the documentary on John Williams yet?
No, I haven't. No.
Check it out. Check it out.
John
man.
Williams, the composer.
Yeah,
or the
Star
guitarist?
Wars.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. It's on
That's
Prime. Or
I'll
is
tell
it
you,
on-
my
or is
favourite
it on Disney?
orchestra
Anyway.
thing was what's it called now? I'm trying to think what it's called now. It was about the Sharks and the Jets. What's it called? It's just gone straight from my head.
West Side
Sharks,
Story?
West Side Story. There you
Yeah.
go. Because I played Diesel in West Side Story and
I usually play D's nuts.
These nuts. Oh, that took me so long to get that, and I don't think I got it either.
Yeah, well, you know,
And my son
don't
had
have
tell
to.
I know, but my son told me what it was.
yeah, man.
You know, I mean,
It's so, one of those stupid things, man.
in joke.
Just stupid viral. YouTube's got a lot
I've
to
never
answer
seen
for.
it.
Oh
I've
well,
never
that's your
seen
problem.
Well, true.
All you have to do is
definitely.
put it in, and you'd see it. So,
Oh well, yeah. After the effect, I could do that.
so what was your last question?
Well, I'll start another one now. You
best
did it.
gig,
You've answered that.
The best
yeah.
gig,
Almost.
because I was going to say, just because we got to play a lot of cool stuff, we got to record, we got to do TV shows, we
Yeah.
got to go on cruises, went to Japan twice, flew to Puerto Rico, came back through the canal on a big cruise ship,
Yeah, yeah.
and went up to Alaska, and also since I'm an old man now and I'm collecting, they paid into the musicians' retirement fund.
Oh.
So I get my Social Security and my AFM,
Oh, wow.
American
Well done.
Federation of Musicians, out of
nice.
Local 47. I get a chunk of money from them every month, along with my UK state pension, because Les Brown took care of
You're
business.
not that
man.
old. You're not old enough to have your pension that way, are you?
What was that,
No.
like 65? I'm 70.
Really? No
Yeah.
way. You don't act like you're 70.
Well, I'll never act like I'm 70, man.
no.
I'll never. It's
better
all
not.
it's all in your brain, man.
It is.
Age is a number.
So let's quick question. What when you meet your heroes, all that sort of stuff, who's the person? I mean, it does matter. I'm sure you can say. If you can't, then don't. But who's the person that you've met that you thought might be brilliant, but then actually really was nothing like you thought they would be in real life?
Yeah, I'm not saying.
No, as I thought you would.
No way.
They're still alive, then, aren't they?
No way.
That's the problem.
Well, even if they weren't,
you're
I
still
wouldn't
not
say
going to
it.
say it.
Even if they weren't, I wouldn't say it because their family would be listening. And
True,
and nine
yeah.
times out of 10, almost 9 times out of 10, the reason I don't like somebody is because they remind me about something about myself I don't like.
I see. Yes,
Like,
yeah.
I just kind of parted ways with a group because it was wasn't what I thought it would be. And also certain members weren't available to make it what I thought it would be.
What he thought it would be. Yeah.
But somebody said, well, you're a large personality. You're a big personality, and big personalities need to be fed quite a bit, which was kind of in the way they were saying it was like, they might have been saying, you got a big ego and it's all about you or whatever like that.
Yeah, yeah.
But my thing is like, if I'm going to be in a band, I love the way that Duke Ellington would feature different people in the band. So it wasn't because I've worked on the cruise ships, I've worked in shows where I just sit there and play the bass, and if it's a good act, man, I'm all in. I'm all in for that. But if I'm in a band where you're not making that much money anyway, and you feel like somebody is taking the whole thing all the time, and you're just like, whatever,
Stuff that
a
over
dog's
there.
body,
Yeah.
then I don't like it. And so that's
No,
kind of like the reason I walked away from it. It might have been one of the reasons I walked away from that.
Yeah.
But them saying that to me, it was like their way of saying, well, you're a big personality anyway. Like, and I thought, they putting me down there saying like I'm a big head and I'm my egotist.
No,
and I was thinking, but you know what? Sometimes I am.
But
Sometimes I
having
do behave that way, and
Well,
that's
you've
that's
gotta
what I
be.
need in life.
You've
you know,
got
it's
to
like,
be. See, if you're not, then you see the one thing that people totally miss. You don't necessarily. Your actual personality is probably not what you put out to everybody else. You've basically got that. Like I. I mean, I have never given out my my extrovert. I am an extrovert. It's all balled up inside here, whatever.
Right.
But I just can't really do it. But if you don't do it, Tom, you don't get anywhere.
Yeah.
You can sit there, and I did this in one of my videos, and I said you can sit there and you can get a guitar out, you can play a guitar, your aunt will be in the next room and they'll go, oh, that sounds really nice, Gavin. And you go, oh, no, I'm not that good. No, don't worry about it, I'm not very good. And that aunt will always think you're not very good now because you've told her you're not very good.
Yeah.
And I think it's not big-headed, it's not egotistical doing that. It's being truthful with yourself.
Yeah.
And I think
it goes back to the three-prong thing, though, as well.
Mm-hmm.
So physically, you've taught yourself to do something that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And when and mentally, when you're in a peaceful environment to where you can do it without any fear, you do it. But then, and spiritually, your higher power is probably saying, you know what? All you got to do is just feel this way. You can play this anywhere. And then Auntie calls you to do it, and then your brain goes, "No, you can't. No, you can't." So that's what I think it is, man. It's like, who am I listening to? Who am I listening to? I've got to listen to the God of my understanding, the power of the universe that's saved me from all the times when I could have been dead by my crazy behavior or my health issues or whatever like that. And
But I think that's the hardest thing to do. I think that is to come to terms with what you actually may well be good at, and I still find it difficult. I mean, I don't know, if someone come up to you and said, you're a really great bass player, the only thing you can answer with is, well, thanks, man. And seriously, I wouldn't, I'd be always negative, say, well, I could have done better on that blah, or I could have done better on this and stuff.
And you know what? That's kind of giving a gift back to someone, which is something that I had to learn. It's like the other day someone was trying to give somebody some money to give to their wife who wasn't there. And at a gig, at the end of the gig, they came up, tried to give this guy some money. And they go, no, buy her some flowers. Or buy the, and he goes, no, don't. And I said, go take it, man.
Yeah.
I said, take it. She'll really enjoy that, like that. But the thing is, like, you don't give power to praise or criticism. If you believe you're doing what you're supposed to be doing with what you've been given by the universe, then people say, hey, that sounds great. The negative side, that's ego saying, no, I'm not. You say, that's not egotistical. I just don't think I'm that good. It's reverse narcissism. So, man, I'm the worst, or I'm not that good, or something like that, as opposed to, well, I'm glad you liked it, man.
Which is what I learned a few years back. To be honest, it's only a recent thing that I've learned, and it's whatever. How do you feel?
Well, for me, it's not whether I've learned it or not.
No.
It's whether I've practiced it.
Yeah.
It's like there's three frogs on a log, and one of them decides to jump in the pond. How many are left on the log?
2.
No, he just decided to. He didn't do it.
Oh, I like that. You've got to run that into a spanner and spoon joke.
Yeah. But also, it's like I've had to recalibrate the way that I talk to myself or about myself. And when you say, "Oh, I'm just not able to perform in public," that's a blanket statement about the future, as opposed to up till now I've had some challenges performing in public.
Yeah,
because I haven't got out of my way enough.
Well, wasn't that fabulous? I really hope you enjoyed listening to Tom and myself have a good old chat about music. And I'll see you on my next video. Thank you very much.